What is up, dudes and lady dudes? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I want to do another discussion video talking about another underappreciated archetype, or I guess type in general, just a generic type of all monsters that fall into that type. This one's an interesting one, right? So this is fish. Fish ends up in a very specific spot in Yu-Gi-Oh's history as far as like why it's kind of been shafted as far as support and actual good archetypes along the way. And the main reason really is that Konami decided to take water, the whole water attribute, and kind of divide it up into three main types. Those being sea serpents, aquas, and fish. Well, fish sounds kind of plain, so Konami kind of leaned a little bit more towards aqua and sea serpents because they just sound cooler for like the aesthetic of the game. And so I think fish never really got as many good archetypes and cards as they probably should have. So I know there's a lot of water monsters altogether, and a lot of archetypes work with fish, sea serpent, and aquas, but fish definitely have the least amount of support out of all of them as far as like good stuff or even good archetypes. I mean, when you look at aquas, you've got frogs, frog paleos. When you look at sea serpents, you've got like mermaids are predominantly sea serpent. Atlanteans are a pretty good sea serpent deck, right? You have some things there. And there are fish here and there that work with the decks, but nothing really fully fish that's like super good or ever has been crazy good at any point in time. So today we're going to be looking at a lot of generic fish cards that already exist and just talking about how if Konami were to make a half decent fish archetype right this second, just a list of cards that would be really great out the gate to just like support those decks. And just give them a nice little boost so that they don't have to be amazing, because these cards kind of help fill in the gaps as far as just generic support for fish. So, without further ado, let's start off with our monsters, okay? Main deck-wise, we have three pretty good starters already. This is kind of crazy. This might be the only type in Yu-Gi-Oh! with as generic, just like starter cards like this, right? So you have Beautiful Princess, Mermaid Shark, and Lifeless Leaf Fish. Okay, Beautiful Princess is kind of like a lone Fire Blossom. On summon, it can banish itself to special any level 4 lower fish straight from the deck. No other restrictions. It's a little weak to Ash, but other than that, it's actually pretty good at just getting you to whatever potential starters. Or it could get you to these other starters. Get you to a Leaf Fish if you want. So if Leaf Fish is good, then Beautiful Princess is just 3 more copies of that. You also have Mermaid Shark. When it's normal summoned, you can add any level 3, 4, or 5 fish from deck to hand. No other restrictions. Pretty good. Other than that, they're both pretty weak that way. It's more of a downside for him, I guess, just because he is level, because he stays on the field, whereas Princess actually banishes herself, so she doesn't stay on the field. So just keep that in mind. And then Leaf Fish is kind of like Armageddon Knight for fish. On summon, it can send any fish monster from deck to grave. And it has the bonus effect where you can banish it from grave to shuffle 3 fish back into the deck and then draw 3 cards. Or draw 1 card. Sorry. Not draw 3 cards. That'd be insane. Draw 1 card. And that's actually pretty good, right? Like, get an extra free card afterwards. You can use both in the same turn, I believe. Which is also really good. So a lot of good starters here just to get us out the gate here. That's really, really nice for fish. Next up, the next like 5 cards I would say all kind of fall into the same category. And these are kind of like Bahamut Toad spam cards, right? Like you have like the sharks, they help you just beam out 2 level 4 fish so that you can make a Bahamut, then a Toad. These guys as well search each other, and then the Exceed monster you make with them gets certain kind of protection if it's a water, so that's pretty cool. And then you have stuff like Remora, which allows you to just extend potentially 3 more bodies onto the field, which is actually pretty good. So just kind of all Bahamut Toad spam cards. Like Beautiful Princess goes straight into Buzzsaw, so like you have a synergy between the cards we're already looking at here, which is pretty good, and no complaints, right? Then we get to some extenders here. We have Silent Angler and White Stingray. Angler just needs any water monster on the field to jump out of the hand, but he says you cannot summon for the rest of your turn from your hand as special summon-wise, which is okay. And then you have Stingray. Stingray just discards a water monster to summon itself, which is not bad. If it's, again, like a graveyard-centric deck with like Leaf Fish, this may still be a worthwhile extender just because you may draw the cards you want in the grave, right? Boom, send the White Stingray. I imagine there could be something that's kind of like a fish archetype, but it's more like bottom-dwelling fish, so it's like very deep under the ocean, right? So very deep, kind of like being in the graveyard kind of thing. I could see something like that. That would be pretty cool there. Then we have Fishborg, Launcher, and Blaster. There may be other Fishborgs that are like decent, but they're just like tuners that can kind of jump back onto the field if your deck is very water centric. They're fine. You know, they could be good in a specific combo mainly. If Hulk is still around, they could be useful. Launcher's banned, by the way, or not Launcher, Blaster's banned, by the way, so just keep that in mind. But cool tuners that the deck can take advantage of. Next up, we have Flying Carp. This is an interesting card. I don't think it's amazing, but it's a cool one, right? And it's only in the OCG right now, but I would imagine we'll get it in the near future at some point. He has a quick effect to discard any water monster to gain 500 attack. Now, I know that doesn't seem amazing, but when you think about stuff like the Atlantean cards, you have monsters that when they're just sent to grave period, you pop a face up or a face down card, so you could just quick discard it, then trigger its effect to pop something. So that's not the worst thing in the world. And also if this card destroys a monster by battle, it can just like tribute itself to special summon any fish from the deck. Also, you know, it's small and you have to, you know, pump it up a decent bit, but if you can get that off, it's actually not half bad. So an interesting card. I don't think it's amazing, but it's interesting. Then you have Hammer Shark. This is a cool card. This is more of a generic water support card, but he himself is a fish, and you can just reduce his level by 1 to special a level 3 water or lower straight from the hand, which is very, very nice. I mean, imagine just using him, pull out Princess, and then you know, and then tribute Princess for something else, and you know, you're off to the races, right? From there, we've got some nimble monsters. We have Angler and Manta. Angler says if he's sent from hand or deck to grave, you can special summon 2 level 3 or lower nimble monsters, except for Angler. So he just send him, like, pull out 2 like nimbles, which is pretty insane. I mean, imagine that with like Leaf Fish, right? Normal Leaf Fish, send an Angler, summon 2 Mantas, right? Like, that's actually not terrible at all, right? And then you've got some link fodder. For sure. And then Manta says if he's sent from the field to grave by a card effect, you can special summon more Manta straight from the deck. So just kind of link fodder, extender cards. Not great to draw, but pretty good to dump off of anything. So cool. Oystermeister. This card's really cool. I think this card is totally underrated for fish. It's one of those cards where you're like, how's this card not been abused yet? It definitely will at some point. Maybe not even just for fish. Maybe just in general. If he's sent from the field to the graveyard except by battle, so it could be linked off, it could be synchroed off, it could be tributed, as long as it's not by battle, he will give you an oyster token. It's just a level 1 water 0/0 token, and it's not once per turn. So this card kind of reminds me of like what's the Steam the Cloak, right? Like, you just get a token every time it's sent from field to grave. So you just keep linking it off, keep getting it back, and then just continue to get like crazy link fodder out of it. So you'd need a card that would be able to get you this back to the field over and over again. And if you could, you'd be able to do some insane link things. So we'll see with that, but that's a cool card for sure. And then you have some generic fish cards, some other generic ones. Fish and Swaps lets you discard a card to target 2 banished fish, sea serpent, or aqua monsters and add them back to your hand. Obviously, this one's only particularly good in like a banish strategy, like a fish deck that wants to banish its own cards. I don't even think it's that amazing, to be honest, because you also have to give up a card in hand. If it just said add 2 back to hand, it's a +1 at that point. But it does take setup. It's kind of like a bad Pot of Avarice at that point. So it's fine. All right, and then we get into some cool spells and traps. This is a spell trap. I don't think it's that cool. Whitefish Salvage is actually very cool. You could just target a fish monster grave, add it back to hand. That's just once per turn. Just get a fish back to hand. It's actually pretty good. Also, if this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can take a fish from your deck and either add to hand or special summon it. So it's one of those cards that you place face up. It's a continuous, and it's one of those cards where like your opponent wants to get rid of it, but if they can't get rid of it, apart from destruction, they're like, I don't even want to now. Like, I'm just going to give him a free fish straight from the deck, whether they want it to hand or field, and that's terrible. Like, I'm going to use resources to remove this just to give them a free card. So it's one of those cards where they have to use like good non-targeting removal or non-destruction removal, or it's just going to stay on the field and you're going to get a free card back every single turn from it. So I kind of like that a lot, especially if it's a grindier deck. You also have Surface. This card's insane. This card's actually insane. It's going to be busted one day in Yu-Gi-Oh! It lets you target any level 3 or lower fish, sea serpent, or aqua monster in grave, and you special summon it in face-up defense position. Not once per turn. if the deck has low-level monsters, this card's just an insane extender. Like I said, not once per turn. It's crazy, right? Like I 100% believe that at one day in Yu-Gi-Oh, this card will be absolutely busted. Absolutely busted. So really, really cool surface. Next up we have White Mirror. This is another reborn spell. It lets you target a level 4 lower fish, specifically engrave, special summon it, then you can add a monster with the same original name from deck to hand. So there's a couple of really cool interactions with this. Like specifically, there's stuff like Angler. Angler's like one of the big ones for sure. Right, because if he's engraved and it's like a following turn, you reborn the Angler to then search an Angler. And because you already have a water on field, you can then special summon the Angler from hand. Keep in mind, Angler locks you out of special summoning from the hand. So if the one you're reborning is one you already used that turn, you wouldn't be able to special summon the second one. But it's still cool nonetheless, or just a starter. I mean, you just reborn a Leaf Fish, send an extender, add another Leaf Fish, and you still have a follow-up play for the following turn, or discard fodder maybe for like a Stingray or something. Like just hand like advantage, which is pretty dang good, right? So yeah, definitely a really cool card. I think this card will be really good if they ever make like a pretty good fish archetype. Excited for that. And then we have some traps, okay? So this is the first one. I actually really like this card. It's 2020, so I'm not sure exactly how good this is, but it's a cool card. So it says, tribute one fish monster to target one card on the field. Destroy that target, and if you do, draw one card. So I like that the draw is attached to the end, so like you kind of make up for that advantage, because otherwise you'd be giving up 2 cards to pop 1 card, but now you're giving up essentially 1 card to pop 1 card. And that's not terrible. It's a 1-for-1 as long as you're sending it out, you know, at a particular time. It's pretty cool. I don't know. I think it could be a little more powerful. I'm not sure if it can really do enough in 2020, but maybe. I mean, there's also synergies with like Oystermeister, right? Like tribute Oystermeister, then pop a card. Oystermeister gets you a token, and then you get to draw. So you actually gave up no card advantage, right? You kept a monster, you kept a card, another card, or you drew another card, and your opponent lost a card. So it's actually kind of cool in certain interactions there. So just something to note, could come up. It could be a good card there. O-Fish is another one because it's essentially like Solemn Strike. Just negate any monster effect activated by your opponent by shuffling a banished fish, sea serpent, or aqua monster back into the main deck. Again, you do have to kind of banish a card, so it has to be a strategy that can like self-banish its own stuff. But if you can get that set up, O-Fish is actually pretty nice. And then you have White Howling. We've seen this card before. If you control a water monster, target a spell in your opponent's grave, banish it, and then it says all spells your opponent has are negated until the end of the turn. That's pretty good, to be honest. Like, imagine, like, Striker format, right? If we ever have a deck that's, like, plays as many spells as Strikers, White Howling is insane versus that deck. So, just a cool card. More matchup-based, but still it's something that this deck would be able to take advantage of. Said Fish deck would assumedly be able to take advantage of against that kind of matchup. All right, and then we'll go to the extra deck real quick. This is going to be pretty quick. We have Ravenous, Crocodile, Archetype. Obviously, it has to be more of a synchro-based strategy, but as long as we still have Hulk, that could still be a possibility to make this guy. Other than that, he's just a fish. Like, he just is a fish, so maybe if it's a deck that has restrictions, you know how Konami's been doing restrictions over the last couple of years. If it's a fish deck, maybe it'll be like, oh, once you use your best starter, best card in the deck, locks you into fish for the rest of the turn, or maybe just from the extra deck, right? Well, Crocodile's kind of still a generic card that's pretty good. It gets you a Dryden pop, essentially, as well as drawing you 1 to 2 cards, which is pretty good, so not half bad. You also have the White Aura cards. They kind of, what they do is, like, if they're destroyed, they reborn themselves as a tuner, and then they have some kind of effect, like, on field as well. But they allow you to essentially try and, like, keep synchroing up into the next one and next one. Whale's probably the best one, because, like, when he's summoned, he just, like, destroys all attack position monsters your opponent controls, which is pretty good. And then he can attack twice, so he's probably the best one overall, but they're all kind of cool. And if it's a synchro strategy, these could be pretty cool cards to take advantage of, like make Hulk give you one of the quick effect tuners on your opponent's turn, and then make a White or a Whale in the middle of your opponent's play to then wipe all of their attack position monsters. And you have an offensive play, and it floats, so like not half bad all the way around. Abyssalacious fine. You can make her with fish, so that's kind of cool. She gains, or she gives 500 attack to everything she points to, and she has like a quick effect that can search a mermail, as well as if she's destroyed, you can send a water monster from deck to grave, then target a water monster in grave and special summon it in defense mode. So it has a good float. A powerful float, but it's only triggered by destruction, as well as the quick effect could be okay. Again, it works well with like Atlanteans, right? Discard an Atlantean from hand to then pop a card, but also get to add a mermail from deck to hand. If it has synergy there, that could be something, I guess. I don't know. It's just a cool generic card. Coral Anemone, though, is actually like a godsend. Whatever fish archetype comes out, whatever future water deck comes out, Coral Anemone has to be in the forefront of your mind as far as generic cards go, because it's just once per turn reborn any water monster with 1500 or less attack. Yes, you are locking yourself into waters for the rest of the turn, but if it's a full-fledged out archetype with like a whole water extra deck, or you're just playing generically water extra deck monsters anyway that are pretty good, this card's an amazing extender. It just is. I'm kind of sour that like Oystermeister is 1600 and she can only reborn 1500 monsters, because if she could reborn Oystermeister, it would be insane, right? Like, link him off with something, get a token. Reborn him, link him off with the token to get another token, and like you just turn 2 materials into 5 materials, which is crazy, crazy, crazy. There, so that's pretty insane. He is level 3 though, so he does work with Surface and White Mirror. Don't sleep on that. But yeah. And then the last 2 cards here are just obvious, Bahamut and Toad. I know they're not fish technically, but if it's any deck that can just put 2 level 4 waters on the field, you have to consider this, because this is how you turn off... what's his name? Oh god, what's his name? Nibiru, or any other hand trap, Gamma as well. This is just how you turn those decks off. Or force them out early before you even try and do the rest of your plays. So very, very strong combination of cards here. Definitely can't sleep on them with any future water deck, right? And listen, I know Sharks are really the only deck that seems to want to make them at the moment, but you know, I guess there are other decks too, but fish-wise, Sharks are really the only deck that seems to want to make these. But got to keep them in mind. You can't forget about them there. But that's pretty much it, guys. I feel so bad for fish, particularly fish, because like there are types that just like you understand why they're a little bit underdeveloped, but fish is one of those where you're literally just like, Konami split up waters to 3 different like individual types and then just decided to make one way more lame than the other. And I get it, like I understand like fish doesn't have as much of a ring as sea serpents and aquas do, but like they're still there. You can't just make them a type and then not give them cool support. I think there could be tons of cool fish decks with like just cool fish cards. Like what if they made like a very Japanese like but like more cool, I guess, like Aqua Actress is sort of like they're kind of koi fish, I think, or goldfish. I can't remember. I don't know too much about Aqua Actress, to be honest. But if they made like an actual like carp, like Japanese fighting fish, like kind of situation, like, and they actually look dope or something, like that could be so cool. If they took fish and made it like cartoony, like Plunder Patrols, right? Like Fiends, you're just like, we did not expect to get Plunder Patrols when they announced new pirate archetype, right? Like what if they got like, you know what I mean, like fish, but like cartoony like that, like they use weapons and stuff like that. I think it'd be so totally cool. They have these handful of cards to take advantage of there, and I think it'd be awesome. So hopefully that's something we can get in the near-ish future. Hopefully that comes to fruition. I would love to see that. Maybe just a deck build pack. Konami just throws fish in there, like a fish archetype. I get 13 cards at once. It's a good deck, or a core set. I don't care. Wherever. I'm down for it. I'd just like to see fish get a little more, and I hope you guys agree, right? So I'm going to leave it off there. Thank you so much for watching this video. As always, throw down in the comment section down below what you think about this topic. Like, do you think fish deserve more? Do you think they deserve a real good archetype, and these cards really do help? I think some of these cards are legitimately awesome. I mean, they just have 3 starters that so many archetypes in Yu-Gi-Oh! Just wish they had something to the equivalent of these, right? Like Time Thief. So Time Thief had a beautiful princess. So you could just go princess into regulator. I know it's another card weak to Ash, but it just is 6 more copies of regulator, which is a 1-card combo in your deck that gets you to actually a pretty insane board. I'm into that, right? So it's just like there's so many archetypes that wish they had some of the cards here. They just don't take advantage of them yet. So I'd love to see Konami just get in there, make a decent. Doesn't even have to be meta, right? I don't mean meta when I say good archetype. I just mean something playable so that we can take advantage of these cards and something that's just cool, right? That's all I want. It's more coolness for Fish. All right, I'm rambling too much. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. I love you. Subscribe if you have and you want to see more stuff like this, and peace.